Good evening and welcome to FCTV's live coverage of the 2022 election. I'm Michael Kasparian.
And I'm Eileen Preston. Welcome to our midterm coverage.
Well, it's been a busy day, Eileen. I know a lot's been going on, and we have a lot of good things in store for you today. Obviously, as the polls begin to close, we'll be coming back with some results, which Eileen's going to be watching very closely here. We've got some interviews for you and some questions. We're going to be going over some of the issues, things that are important to you as Falmouth residents, as well as residents of the Commonwealth.
We'll also be joining Queen Carberry Banda in Town Hall, where she's going to talk to Mike Palmer, our veteran town clerk here in Falmouth, who's going to give us the latest results from every single precinct we have. And there are 9 precincts, so that's a busy day for all of them.
It sure was a busy day for him. I voted early this morning, Precinct 5, and he was there. And bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going along. Things were going very smoothly. We've heard that the turnout has been pretty high, which is a good thing. People have been out, they've been voting, and I think some of the races that could have been pretty close are going to be. We're going to see at the end of the day how things turn out once we start getting those results.
Yeah, we're going to have some interviews as well today. We're going to be interviewing our candidate, Democratic candidate for the Barnstable County Sheriff. That's going to be Donna Buckley. She's going to be here momentarily. We'll also have Kathleen Fox Alfano, the state representative. She is facing off against David Vieira.
That's right.
And our third candidate?
I don't recall.
Okay, I will help you out with that one. That's going to be our state representative,
Sue Moran. That's right. But she'll be coming in on a Zoom call. That's right. It'll be a Zoom call.
She'll be joining us on Zoom.
That's what threw me off. It's not going to be live. It'll be a Zoom. But
I'm sorry about that.
Looking forward to hear from her. Yeah.
So we have the sheriff's race, we have another criminal case, a district attorney race, so law and order,
That's
sort
right.
of, I think of that in that bucket. We have a governor's race.
That's right.
Lieutenant governor, state secretary of state, auditor.
And Congress, U.S. Congressman.
U.S. Congressman.
Right. So there's a lot of interesting races, things that are going to affect us here in Falmouth as well as statewide.
And then, of course, we have ballot questions. So
Yes.
there are 4 ballot questions, and we don't know about the turnout yet, but we'll find out soon.
Yeah, we've heard a little bit from the feedback. There's been pretty good turnout, at least from, I just spoke to somebody working the polls over at Falmouth High School, said the turnout was pretty amazing. And that's a good sign, you know, when democracy works, is when everybody gets out and votes. The 4 ballot questions you mentioned, very interesting, wide range, a big scope of those questions. A lot of arguments on both sides. There, I think, was quite a bit of publicity on all 4 of those ballot questions. I think people went to the polls pretty informed in how they would affect them and affect the town. So it'll be interesting to see how those turn out as well.
Yeah, our turnout in the presidential election here in Falmouth was about 83%.
Wow,
that
that's
is
amazing.
Outstanding. I don't know a community that has shown up like that. And we have great turnout usually, and I think we had a 40% turnout for the state primary, which we just had in September. And do you know the precincts that usually show up really the highest?
Is that a trick question? Because I'm not 100% sure, but I know my precinct, Precinct 5, usually has a pretty high turnout.
do.
That's right.
You're absolutely
Precinct
right.
5 and Precinct 6, I know that to be true.
It is
You know,
true.
we're out there.
And usually Woods Hole, Precinct 1, really shows up. But it's getting neck and neck. Everybody's really looking forward to voting, enjoying voting.
Absolutely.
Early voting is really a popular item. So
Yeah, and I think probably the mail-in numbers are probably the highest ever this year. I mean, based on some of the feedback that we've gotten from folks who have been mailing in. I think maybe COVID had something to do with that, kind of left over from that, as well as the ease of doing that. It makes it simpler. Get your vote in early, get them counted. And
do you have a first voting memory, Michael?
well, you know, the interesting memory I have is that I voted in every election that I possibly could have since I was 18 years old.
You're a good American.
I'm a good American. It's really important. I think that it's, I think it should be required, but that's a whole different, I wish it was required, but yeah, we take it very seriously.
And a holiday.
And a holiday to boot on top of that.
I'll
But
take any holiday.
I think probably for me, the presidential elections are always really memorable to me because, you know, it goes on for so long. And now, unfortunately, I think they go on a little too long. It's like a 4-year cycle, or it used to be a 2-year cycle. But it's always very interesting to see where a candidate begins and where a candidate ends and how things change along the way and how I think you really get to know about that person. I think on some of the local elections where the cycle is a little bit shorter. You don't have as many opportunities to hear from them. It's a little difficult. You have to dig a little bit more. But with the national ones, I think that you're hearing a lot. It's being brought to you, and those always stand out and be memorable. How about yourself?
Well, I've read research that says that you should start a child early going to the polls. Even though they can't vote, they watch it, they like it. And that's exactly what my family did. And I remember my father would get home from work, my mother had voted while we were at school, and we would walk down to the elementary school and vote. And I just thought it was the best thing. And I finally got a chance to talk to Dad all by myself, because he'd been at work all day. And I love it. I just love elections. I think it's, it makes you proud.
It certainly does. And it's just the way we can all participate.
Yeah.
So I think that what we want to do is want to roll into possibly bringing in Donna Buckley, and I know that she's in the studio. I'll bring her in and talk to her and see how things are going.
I think we have a first package we want to see first.
Great. You want to do that first?
We'll just have a little clip we're going to show viewers first, okay?
Great.
In your opinion, what is the most important ballot question?
Most important, the 4% tax increase on people earning over $1 million of taxable income.
I think because I think we keep trying to divide people, and I'm tired of dividing people. To me, we all pay taxes. We should all pay taxes. That's what we do. And I don't think one group against another is ever a good thing.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to anyone from Falmouth who hasn't voted yet?
Get out and vote, and for your reasons, and do your research. Try to be informed as you can. It's not easy.
You gotta vote, otherwise you can't complain about anything going on. Like, even if your person doesn't win, it doesn't matter. You still gotta. It's the process. We gotta use the process we have or fix the process.
Absolutely.
Well, that was very well said, and I'll tell you, I like that part where the woman being interviewed talked about how important it was to vote. And again, what we were talking about earlier was the turnout that was out there, and we want to welcome Donna Buckley, who is candidate for Barnstable County Sheriff. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Eileen.
So would you agree when you were out there today, I'm assuming you were out and about, did you see strong turnout?
Yes, actually, we started our morning in Falmouth, 7 o'clock this morning,
Wow.
and then we went to Brewster and worked our way back. Amazing energy out there, and I just want to say, our supporters were out there, working the polls and making sure that we exercise our right to vote.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, that's really the key, and that's kind of the topic we started off with today, was talking a little bit about the turnout and hoping it's going to be high. Eileen had spoken about how in Falmouth votes, 82% in presidential elections?
That's right. Yeah.
We're hoping it's going to be a high one today. And as you were out there, I know you've been campaigning for how long for this?
So we officially get into this race just after March 14th, so it's a little under 8 months.
Wow, it's a long way. And what are some of the issues, the most important issues, the feedback that you got from people, what they were looking for from the new sheriff in Barnstable?
So one of the things that was interesting about the sheriff's race is, unlike governor, state rep, state senator, the role of the sheriff, like what is the job, was a big part of the conversation. Because you had to explain it. Otherwise, people were left to sort of vote on a stereotype or vote on, what's a sheriff look like in Florida? Well, does that apply in Massachusetts? So in Massachusetts, the role of our sheriff is to run the jail. Okay. But the direction of the office is set by the sheriff. So for 24 years, we had a sheriff who had a different focus. And so we have to educate the voters, help them understand what it is that they're electing someone to do. And this election was the opportunity between, two different visions for what the priorities of our sheriff's office should be.
And speaking of that vision, so your opponent, Tim Whalen, he had he had an endorsement from Jim Cummings after the 27 years. There was very little daylight between their positions. With your position, you were more the change candidate. I think it's fair to say you were the change candidate. You had a lot of ideas about sort of streamlining and focusing in. So can you talk about that?
So, yes. While I worked at the sheriff's office, I had an opportunity to work with the legislature, understand where the legislature wants the priorities of the sheriff's offices to be, and where a lot of the other sheriff's offices were focusing their priorities. And in Barnstable County, we were kind of going in a different direction. And it didn't meet the challenges of today. The inmates that we have in our jail are very different than from when Sheriff Cummings took office 24 years ago. Whether they're in our criminal justice system or even just in our communities, we know we are all struggling with mental health and addiction challenges. There's evidence, there's polls out there that show that people believe those are crises. And that's what's in our jails. And the question for voters today is, what do we want to use the resources that we have at the jail and the time that people are incarcerated, what do we want to do? And how does that impact our public safety? And I brought to the table the fact that the data shows us that the way to make sure that people don't come back and become part of this revolving door of repeat offenders is to use the time they're incarcerated for treatment programs and correction, not punishment. And that was sort of pretty much the difference, is how that was prioritized.
And I'm really interested in, you're a first-time candidate.
Oh, yes.
And I'm wondering how that has been. I've heard you are the workhorse of candidates. You are everywhere at once, like a soccer player, on all over the field. Brewster one day, Falmouth the next, sometimes in all at once, right?
It feels like that. So I left my job at the sheriff's office to run for this position. This was not, as I say when I talk to people about this was not a bucket list item for me. I'm not a politician, but this mattered. And no one else was in the race, so we would have never had an opportunity to have a choice in Barnstable County about what direction our sheriff's office should go. It has been a ride, and I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to my team, the supporters, and the people I have met across the Cape. And most importantly, my husband. He has been by my side throughout this entire campaign, and this has been 8 months of this for both of us. Full-time, all in, and the goal was to make sure that as many people as possible had an understanding of what it meant to check the box.
Yeah, and from all that I've heard, you've done an excellent job in that, explaining that. That's the feedback that we certainly have gotten for a long time. The race seemed to be civil, good, a lot of conversation. Did you feel as though it was adversarial at all? Did you feel as though you were really able to get out there, state your position, and really differentiate, the two different philosophies of what it would be?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think, several times both Tim and I have said to each other that, thank you, and recognize the fact that this was sort of the old days of politics where people talked about issues. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of noise around this campaign, at least not coming from me and not coming from Tim. We had two different directions we want to take the sheriff's office, and it's ultimately up to the voters to decide what that looks like.
That's wonderful to hear, actually.
Yeah, that is wonderful
Really
to hear. And
important.
it's wonderful to have civility in an election. I love the way that you talk about educating the voter, educating the population, and we'll see. Are you feeling good?
I feel good because what I set out to do, we did.
Great.
We had the conversations. Ultimately, and this has been part of the conversation with the voters, it's our sheriff's office. It's not mine, it's not Tim's. It belongs to the Barnstable County voters, and they need to step up and set the direction. So they have the information. I'm hopeful that they agree that our direction is the way to go. But they're the ones who are going to make this decision tonight, and we have done everything that we can to help give them the information they need.
Where are you headed tonight?
So we are headed to Hyannis, join our families and our supporters, and we will watch you, and we will watch, the results come back. I, like you, hope that this is a high turnout because voting matters. I'm sure you see it, we've seen it, people are overwhelmed sometimes by the discourse and the national level, national discourse on politics.
Sure.
And even, within our state. But voting can impact that, and if people take advantage of that opportunity.
Wonderful. That's great. So, I think it's always very refreshing when you have a first-time candidate out there and to see you at the end of this run so full of energy, I mean, as you were in the beginning, is really wonderful. And it's really good to hear that, you felt like you got your message out there, that it was really more about, educating people and the love of the county and what the job really means. So congratulations on an excellent run.
Wonderful tone.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time. We very much appreciate it. We know how hard you've worked, and it's a lot of work. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it here at FCTV.
Thank you both. Thank you for taking the time to share this night with me.
Good luck, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Best of luck.
Well, we have another segment coming up where our Queen Bonda is over at Town Hall, and she taped an interview with Michael Palmer. He's very busy, obviously, running around today through all the different polling stations and then back at Town Hall. So we're going to roll into that and see what Michael Palmer had to say.
We don't actually have the results yet, but we had about 7,700 ballots were cast early, and those have been pre-tabulated, and at 8 o'clock we'll be able to release those results. As of 5 o'clock this afternoon, we had another 7,700 ballots cast. So we're looking at approaching 65% turnout, which is what can be expected for a November state election. It was brisk all day, and we'll see what we do between 5 and 8. That may bring that up, between 65 and 70%. But really, early voting by mail and early voting by person has changed the dynamics of how we vote. We have, as of right now, 7,700 people have voted early, and 7,000 have voted in person. So you can see that that's a change from the olden days when everyone used to have to go to the polls. You didn't have the option of voting in person. Now, how that impacts turnout, I'm not quite sure yet. Is it going to increase turnout, or is it just people choosing to vote by a different method? And that's how you have to have some data. You have to have a few elections behind you to be able to make those determinations.
Wow. So any other oddities maybe you have picked up comparing to years in the past, how people vote, and depending on how they vote, what's the results going to look like? Can you tell us some of the things that you have observed from the past in comparison to this year?
Well, I try to stay non-political in my job. I'm very nonpartisan, and that's how I like to run my office. But I think the country's in a state where people are very accusatory. They're suspicious of the election process, and that's what I really take pride in. And I value my integrity and value that we do things correctly in the town of Falmouth. And if I count on all my other town clerks in the state of Massachusetts to be doing the same thing, we won't run into the problems that other states have had where there's been issues about voter fraud and that type of thing. I mean, I know I've done everything that I possibly could to avoid voter fraud. Could it be? Of course it could be, but we're not bringing in, bushels full of baskets and pumping them through the voting box. So, the people who are voting are very skeptical at this point. They're very worried about the voting process being accurate and being fair and not without fraud. And I know, again, I'll repeat this, that what we do in the town of Falmouth is 100% above board. And we cross our T's and dot our I's, so we don't have these things happen that have happened in other states, I'm going to say, because not so much in Massachusetts.
So those who are skeptical about voter fraud, do they tend to come to vote in person, or are they the ones who tend to vote by mail, you'd say?
Well, we're certainly going to see that in the results tonight. Is that a vocal minority of people that are questioning in the election? I don't know that. We'll see by what the results of the election are and what happens with that vote, and then we can analyze, whether those people are energized to come out and vote or not, or not.
So you said the results, we'll have the results right at 8, as soon as 8 comes.
Only the ballots that we tabulated early, the early voting by mail and early voting by person, we were able to tabulate them up until last Friday, and then everything after last Friday had to be delivered to the polling places, and they were processed through the tabulators at the polling place today.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Cannot wait to hear the results.
All right. Come and serve.
I love that. That was fabulous.
Yes, it was. He was doing an amazing job down there.
And we are visited now by Kathleen Fox Alfano. Kathy, she tells us to call her.
Please.
She is running for the 3rd Barnstable representative for the district of
Yes.
Falmouth and Plymouth and...
No, it's actually Falmouth. It's 6 of the 9 districts or precincts in Falmouth.
That's right.
All of Mashpee and 3 precincts in Bourne.
Excuse me, that's right. And 2/3 of Falmouth, right?
Yes, correct.
Your opponent being David Vieira.
Yes.
And this is a first time for you here.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
So I really feel like win or lose, I won, because I have met so many amazing people. I've learned so much, and I think I will have my opponent do a little different work from now on. I want him to be much more transparent with his constituents, and I want him to get involved certainly with much more with the wastewater, water was my number 1 priority.
Yeah, I know wastewater was your priority
Yes.
because you're a wastewater commissioner in Bourne, is that
Correct.
right?
That's correct.
And you've concerned more about not just the wastewater, but other issues with water. Here we
Yes.
are. So
Yes,
do you
where
want
we
to
are.
Expand on that?
Sure. Well, I'm very concerned about clean drinking water. We are lucky we have some now. However, if you look at places like Arizona, California, that is going to become a real commodity. Just like salt was, then oil, clean water is going to be next. And we have to protect what we have and make sure that we all have clean drinking water. And I'm also concerned about sea level rise. I know that we're working with coastal resiliency. We're so lucky to have Hui here that we can, work with experts to mitigate this. But it's going to happen whether we like it or not, and we have to start working on it now, not 20 years from now.
Absolutely, that's a great point. So while you were out campaigning and talking to people, and as you mentioned, you're from Bourne,
Yes.
but you also had all of Mashpee and then
Yes.
6 of the 9 precincts in Falmouth.
Correct.
So when you get to the 2 different communities, Mashpee and Falmouth, did you find people were pretty much on the same page? Or did you have
Yes.
to do some education?
I believe that clean water is important for all of us. It's a bipartisan issue. It's something we all have to be concerned about. And the other issue that was very important to me was women's issues. Not just reproductive health, which fortunately we do have now here in Massachusetts. However, about 80% is what women make for the same job as men. And also I think we need to mentor our young girls so they know they can do whatever they want to. So those are very
Important issues, the father of two daughters, it's important to me,
Yeah.
and we've tried to teach our daughters that same way. But you're right, the wage disparity,
Yes.
obviously a big issue as we're
It
going
is.
into the future.
Yes.
That should be.
And
even-
also, we need affordable daycare. I know we're working on that with the Common Start program that Sue will probably be talking
right.
about.
Right.
That is something that is really vital, so we can get the economy kick-started again. Right now, a lot of women are home because their children, they can't afford to do daycare. If they pay more for daycare than they do make at their jobs. So that is something we definitely have to work on now.
Now, ballot question number 1, the millionaire taxing. That money is allocated if the voters voted
Yes.
in. There'll be a 4% little extra tax that we're going to get.
Yes.
Certain people will get, right?
Yes,
Millionaires will get.
only people who have over $1 million.
Right.
So people who make over $1 million in income, or if say you sell your house. Now they say that you would have to have a house that's well over $2 million to have the excess of the $1 million.
Right.
So it's what you paid for your house plus all couples would get $500,000. Then any improvements you did to the house. So when you add all that up, very few people are going to actually wind up paying this 4%.
So my question is, that money, that extra funding,
Yes.
is allocated for institutions, educational institutions, and transportation.
Right.
So if we do get that money passed, where would you put that on the Cape? Where would you spend that money?
Well, definitely on transportation, and of course we have the bridges,
Right,
which is one of my
yeah.
big concerns. I'm not as concerned about the construction and design of the bridges as I am of the local access roads, because everybody who goes over, the bridges to the mainland is going to have to, worry about the traffic and how that's all going to, to work. And also, people are going to be losing their homes and their businesses if they're in the way, so to speak. They'll be taken by eminent domain, and people have the right to know about that. So that's one of the things I want to work on is making sure that people know the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's reality and we have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's been a pretty slow process as well. My understanding is, right, Army Corps of Engineers is going to be working on the bridge, but it's Mass DOT that's going to be doing the approaches and then taking over.
Right.
And that's still in the phase where people are talking about that. We still don't have even a bridge
Right.
design or anything.
Correct. Every time we have a meeting, basically the answer is, we don't know. Well, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely something I want to bring.
So, it was very interesting. I found that question one, going back to what Eileen was talking about, was I don't really know how well of a job opponents or proponents did in really explaining that. What you brought up about I heard a lot about if you sell your house, but
Right.
I didn't see a lot of people really spelling out the fact that,
Right.
you take what the difference between what you paid, what you sold it for, et cetera.
Right.
There were some claims that people would be leaving the state in droves.
Yes.
Kind of a balance. I think the whole spirit of the ballot question was to strike up some type of a balance for the benefit of the entire community.
I agree. I think when I first heard about it, I was taken aback as well. But now when I learned all the different ways that, you're not, if you sell your house for $1 million, doesn't mean that that's what you're going to be paying on. And if you wound up with a net gain of $1,000,001, $1, you're going to be paying on that $1, not on the whole thing.
Sure.
So it isn't as horrible
Draconian.
sounding as
Draconian.
it might first appear.
Yeah.
So I support it because I do think that we'll really be able to help with the transportation and, of course, the schools. And I'm hoping that if we're putting money in there to the schools, then we have other money that we can put towards, wastewater and other things that the state really does need to look at.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, obviously, you hit the nail on the head. We all know wastewater is one of those huge issues here. Especially here. And as we talk about, and going a little bit off topic, we're talking about affordable housing, which is
Yes.
the big issue.
Yes.
Obviously, wastewater plays an important role in that, density, et cetera.
Yes.
So really important. I think people are paying more attention to that. People are becoming more educated, and
Right.
any extra money being diverted to that area would be very helpful.
I
So,
certainly
yeah.
agree. Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So, out on the campaign trail, first time and all, did you learn a lot about yourself?
Yes, I learned that I have a lot of energy and I don't stop. I'm a bulldog. I guess I already knew that. I think what I learned from other people, that was really the interesting part for me, is learning so much and getting to know all these amazing people who I now consider my friends. Who supported me, who were banging on doors for weeks on end, and I really enjoyed that. And I found that campaigning is something that I really liked, which is, I know, kind of weird, but all the things that I've done in my life sort of led up to this.
Nice.
And so yeah.
So you're a happy warrior.
I am, and I guess I learned that I can.
And what tip would you give newbies, people who are interested in getting involved in politics and running?
Don't be afraid to talk to anybody.
Oh,
It's funny because you could judge people or whatever and say, oh, they'd never vote for me, whatever. Don't do that. Talk to everybody, listen to what they have to say. I found that really fascinating.
Good news in life, too. That's a good advice.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Talk to everybody. And we can't let you go before you tell us about Lucky, because we're going to wish you luck,
Thank
right?
you,
But
thank you.
we also want to know about Lucky. Tell people about Lucky.
Okay, Lucky is my rescue dog, and he was found abandoned in an abandoned house in Houston, Texas.
Oh.
He tried to gnaw his way out. He's missing his 4 front teeth. Fortunately, a rescue group heard him and rescued him. I brought him to a vet because he was a bag of bones. He had mange. I mean, he was in bad shape. And if they'd brought him to a shelter, they would have killed him that afternoon. but the rescue people, nursed him back to health. He had a vet and all that. And I had happened to have lost a pup who was only 6 years old. It was awful, to cancer. And people said to me, the way to get over that is to find a dog who really needs you. Well, Lucky was like a poster child for a dog that really needed me. And he flew up on a United Airlines and walked in the door, and he was home.
Wonderful.
He just sat down, and he's the best dog I've ever had, and I've had plenty of dogs. He knows. He knows he landed in a bowl of cherries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Very refreshing to hear that you said you felt as though you accomplished what you set out to do.
I certainly did.
And so regardless of how this works out, you'd be willing to work with Representative Vieira, whether,
Yes,
and that's
definitely.
wonderful.
And I
to know.
think we had an issues campaign. We didn't do any,
Absolutely.
personal nastiness or anything like that. So.
That's always good to hear.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Wonderful.
So I think right now we're going to go over back to Town Hall. Queen Bonda is there, and our understanding is she might have some election results coming our way. Hello, Queen. How are you? Can you hear
I'm
me?
doing well, guys. Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you.
What do you have for us?
Yes, so we have early voting results here.
Okay.
Okay, and bear with me. All right, so for governor, we have Maura Healey, who is leading. She has quite the lead by 5,705 votes.
Okay, great.
We have Attorney General, and for Attorney General is Andrea Campbell. She's winning by 5,282 votes. Secretary of State, we have William Gavin winning by 5,977 votes. For Treasurer, we have Deborah Goldberg by 5,963 votes.
Well, everyone who's winning is so far is winning by 5,000
Exactly. I was
votes.
thinking that.
And yes, and their opponents are nowhere close to them. For those that I've so far read. For State Auditor, we have Diana DiZilio by 4,774 votes. For State Representative in Congress, 9th District, we have Bill Keating, 5,774 votes. For Councilor 1st District, which was uncontested, so he has gotten so far 5,732 votes. For Senator in General Court, Plymouth and Barnstable District, we have Sue Moran by 5,702 votes. Representative in General Court, 3rd Barnstable District, that one was it's a very, very close election so far. So David Vieira is falling behind. He has so far received 2,254 votes, while Kathleen Alfano, Fox Alfano, she's leading by 2,385 votes, a difference of 131 votes. We have representative in General Court, Barnstable, Jokes, and Nantucket District. So that one was uncontested, of course. Dylan Fernandez, 2,309 votes. We have District Attorney, Cape and Islands District. That one is Robert Galbois, Robert Joseph Galbois, by 5,124 votes. Sheriff, Barnstable County, Donna Buckley, by 5,180 votes. County Commissioner, Barnstable County, we have Ronald Bergstrom, 5,455 votes. We have Barnstable Assembly Delegate Falmouth, and that's one, of course, is uncontested. Danielle Gisson, and that is 5,527 votes. We have Regional School Committee, Upper Cape Cod Bone, and that is also uncontested. David Simpson by 5,027 votes. We have Regional School Committee, Upper Cape Cod, Falmouth. Thomas Korovo by 5,219 votes. That one, of course, uncontested. Regional School Committee, Upper Cape Cod, Sandwich, also uncontested. Michael DeGan, 4,813 votes. Regional School Committee, Upper Cape Cod, this one is in Wareham, uncontested. Dominique Camarano, 4,811 votes. And now I'm going to read the questions.
Okay.
Question 1, which had to do with taxes, raising taxes. That is winning so far by a very, very small margin, 4,404 votes. About only like 100 votes difference there. Question number 2 has to do with dental. That is also leading by a lot, 5,731 votes. Question number 3 has to do with alcohol. That so far is losing. So people voted no by 536 votes. And question number 4, licenses for immigrants. And that is a yes by 4,522.
That's great. Thank you, Queen. That's quite thorough. And you'll be staying down there and continuing to report for us?
Absolutely. We are here. I do not know if you guys have any questions that you have for us here.
We do. We want to know what the mood is. Is it busy there? How's everyone doing?
Well, apart from those who need to be here, those who work at the town hall, we have a few reporters here.
Yes.
So it's very quiet at the moment, and they are giving us results as they get them in. As again, they have already tabulated, I think, all the early votes, and they are working on to get the results for the rest of those votes. Just as how I've shared with you that all of these were from early voting.
Sure. Queen, we've heard from a couple of sources that the voter turnout was pretty heavy today. Would you say people down at Town Hall talking that it was a pretty good turnout for voting?
Yes. We heard from Michael Palmer, who
Yeah.
did confirm that the voting turnout was quite impressive. So far, about like 65%. He says of the residents came out to vote.
That's great.
And then that number could actually go up as they continue to receive these results. But yes, he was quite impressed by the turnout.
Yeah. A lot of important issues, a lot of important races. So we're thankful that people have come out and voted. And we're going to continue to bring that coverage. And Queen's standing by down at Town Hall. With, it looks like you got the white whale there behind you. Moby Dick there up on the wall there.
Yes. It's the only place we could find secured Wi-Fi so far.
Don't
Wonderful.
leave.
Yeah.
Thank you, Queen.
Thank you. We'll be back to you. Great.
Okay.
All right. So that's great. So 65% turnout. That's amazing, and
At
it
a
could go
midterm,
higher.
yeah.
That's really amazing.
Last
and
midterm turnout was
yeah.
about 40%,
Yeah.
so that is something, yeah.
So interesting, some of the results, early results coming in. So a couple of these races that have been closely watched seem like they're neck and neck.
Yes.
But that 5,000 number of people voting in those precincts so far are pretty good.
Yeah, now this is Falmouth only. We
Yeah,
should be
that's
very
right.
clear about this. This is unofficial numbers. The official won't be till tomorrow, right?
That's right.
And these are early votes that have been tabulated because right now they're still tabulating.
We've got a long way to go. It's
today's
still only
votes.
8:30. The polls have just closed at, 8 o'clock?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
we got a little ways to go here. But, one of the things that you had brought up was with Kathy was ballot question number 1. I think,
Yes.
with the 4 ballots, it was interesting what Queen was talking about. That seems to be moving along a little bit.
Yes,
by a
millionaire
slight-
tax.
Millionaire tax. Again, I think what we talked about was there seemed to be some confusion, at least when we were talking to people, about really what that entailed. So,
So
wonder
just
how
to be
much-
clear.
And please do.
So that's the sale of homes and businesses over $1 million. So we're normally taxed at 5%. And if you have a home you sell your home for 1.2, you get the 5% for the first million, and then that last two would be, the 200,000 would be taxed at an additional 4%. So that would be 9% for that last $200,000 that your house went over. So it's not the whole thing. Yeah. So.
And that money being earmarked, as you talked about.
Yes.
So
to transportation,
yeah.
infrastructure, bridges, public schools, and universities.
Yeah.
So
okay, it'll be interesting to watch that one. Question 2, which I think we were talking about, that also is a little bit with the yays on that. With the
Yeah, I missed actually whether she said that was. I tried to take notes. I think she said the dental. It was passing by a lot. Okay, so that's the that ballot question is about the amount that dental carriers should be paying for your premium. So when you go to the dentist, they want you to get up. Medical carriers now have to carry at least 85%, so they're asking dentals to do the same. And they also want a little bit more transparency because dentists have been complaining they can't figure out what the carriers are paying. So that seems to be quite popular. And it also polled very well.
Yeah, that's right. We'll circle back with that, but now I think our third interview, we have State Senator Sue Moran, who's on Zoom, so we're going to be able to speak with her a little bit right now, and then we'll get back to the ballot questions.
Yeah, I'm just going to get
you've got her on your
Sue
screen,
up
Zoom.
and see if Sue can. Just have to unmute myself here.
Yeah, there we go. What we've learned through COVID, Zooming everything.
If I can't do this now, I'm in big trouble. Sue Moran, can you hear me? Not sure if she knows that we're up. Sue, are you aware that we're on? I have been unmuted. I'm certainly unmuted.
Is she on your screen looking at you?
Yeah, she is looking at me. Hello, Sue Moran. Thanks for joining us. She might not be able to hear. It looks like Sue is in a car at the moment.
Oh.
But she is looking at the screen waiting.
Both hands on the wheel, Sue. Okay.
Pay attention to where you're going.
I hope she's being driven if she's going to talk to us. So.
Yep, she's definitely being driven, I can tell.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be able to see, though. But Sue, it sounded like Sue was doing well in her race. Did it not? Did I hear 5,000? She's up 5,000?
Well, I think that was the total votes, right? We were talking about, and I think, again, Queen was talking about just the Falmouth votes, which you alluded to.
Okay.
So, of course, there's other towns that she's not counting those. So, and obviously being hometown, Sue is her hometown.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we'll see how that.
So we're still seeing Sue,
but she.
Yeah, I think she's on.
Sue Moran seems to have a little difficulty hearing. She's making a.
Yep.
Can you hear me, Sue?
Tell what they're doing. Let's see.
She might be able to hear me now. Definitely.
Modern technology.
Sue, can you hear me? Hello, Sue Moran. State Senator Sue Moran. Traveling on the highways. The campaign never ends.
Heading toward Falmouth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. She doesn't seem to be able to hear us yet.
Yeah. Once we get her, we'll pop her on.
Yeah. So, Sue, can you hear? I did hear that the governor's race was going strong, and that would not surprise anyone.
I think not. I think most people do expect Maura Healey
to be elected, the first woman governor.
Openly
Elected.
Yes, little trivia for you.
Yeah, a little trivia for you.
Who was it?
Jane Swift.
Yes,
That's
you're
right.
absolutely right.
That's right. I remember that, and I was actually a Rhode Island resident at that time, but that was still a big deal. It took Rhode Island a lot longer to get to that point, but this will be the first fully elected woman governor. And I thought what was really interesting with the race, was how the sitting governor, Charlie Baker, a Republican, worked so closely with Maura Healey, and how they worked really closely together and were really able to condone each other and what they were doing. And I thought it was very interesting. That was a very civil transition. It will be if, in fact, Maura Healey is successful in taking the gubernatorial race.
Interestingly, Charlie Baker actually polls about 30% higher with Democrats than he does with Republicans, and there was a bit of a fracture there between the Republican chair, Jim Lyons, and Charlie Baker, and Charlie Baker didn't endorse as many Republicans as they would have wished.
Right.
Jeff Deal being one of the people that was not endorsed by Baker.
Right.
And we can look at that race right now if you like.
That'd be
and
great. If
see
you can
how
pull that up, that'd be great to
goes.
see where we're at. You get some, and we're going, where are you going for that? Is Politico?
Oh, good question.
Going to Politico,
We're going to go to the Cape Cod Times, actually, for
Okay,
that one, I
great.
think.
Yep.
And actually, I have the state Senate race up here now, so I can give you that
Yeah, that'd be
latest
great.
results on that, since we didn't get Sue Moran on.
Prelude to Senator Moran when we do finally capture her and get her on the Zoom.
Cape Cod's not reporting
They're
yet,
not
Sue
reporting it
Moran.
either.
We
Wow.
gave you numbers before the Cape Cod Times, but we're not bragging. And we're going to have up, just going to look for the county results on things that we do
So everybody's
have.
running around feverishly right now, trying to get all the results in. Of course, I think they'll try to call as many of these races as they can before everybody goes to bed tonight.
I can give you a little bit on Bill Keating,
Yeah, please do.
District 9.
Yes.
With 0.72% of the votes in so far,
Okay.
Bill Keating is not leading the race. He is at 1,295, 45% of the votes. Jesse Brown at 1,569. So there's about a 200, 300 count difference there. But again,
Pretty low feedback so far.
0.72, yeah, of the race, yeah.
Not even 1%
So-
reporting back.
Not yet any results for Donna Buckley and Timothy Whalen, State Representative Timothy Whalen, battling it out there for the Barnstable County Sheriff.
And I thought that was fascinating with that conversation we had with Donna, talking about the different visions, and that'll be interesting what people will vote based on those visions and see what the next sheriff is going to be doing here in Barnstable County.
Maura Healey is indeed at, okay, so we have 1.14% of the votes in, but Maura Healey has a commanding lead right now with 23,000, almost 29,000 votes to Jeff Dealey's almost 9,000 votes. So she's got about 72% of the vote. There's a libertarian in the race as well, Kevin Reed. He's got about 1% of the vote in right now. So Maura Healey is expected to really sort of run away with this race. We're looking at on the screen right now. So here we are. Deal.
So far, but like you're saying, it's 1%, a little over 1% of the vote. But again, that's not going to be a surprise.
It will not be a
It
surprise.
will not be a surprise. I think that's everybody fully is expecting Maura Healey to become the next governor of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and when she does, if she does, not only will she be the first woman elected governor, but she'll bring with her a female lieutenant governor, Kim Driscoll. They're both basketball players, I believe, and they talk a lot about teamwork on the candidate field. And we'll also have if it happens, a Democratic Attorney General, our first black Attorney General, the state auditor. It may be a woman. These people are all scheduled to win as far as the polls are concerned. They have a really commanding lead in polls, but we'll see what happens.
So a lot of firsts. Very interesting. A lot of firsts happening here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And that's always refreshing. Change is good, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
People are coming up
absolutely.
with fresh ideas. And so, yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. Again, and what they're doing is putting up our questions on the screen and see where we're at. Again, 1.3% of the vote counted right now. The question one, the tax on income above $1 million. So 60 to 40% right now with yes, people leaning in favor of that additional tax.
Now, Michael, the opponents of question one, they had some issues with it. What was we were talking about that earlier.
Well, one of the things I read was people felt as though people would flee the Commonwealth, and people would have a lot of people move out. High-income people would be leaving the Commonwealth as a result. They also felt as though it was unfair because the home is most people's largest asset. So any additional tax on that is going to take away from possible retirement, long-term health care, et cetera. But to your point, what the proponents were saying, they kind of explained it the way you did earlier, how it's just incremental amount when you really added it up. So it was kind of hard to get your head around that, I think, unless you really paid attention to it. And I think a lot of it will come down to how the voters actually feel about, I suppose that if that is your only asset and you're looking at it that way, or one of your largest assets, you're going to look at it very differently than if you're a person that is, in a much lower income category that is never going to be anywhere near $1 million, thinking like, well, why can't those people help pay for the roads, et cetera? So a lot of it, obviously has to do with where you're at economically, not just politically, but economically. A lot of the ballot questions do come back to that. And the strong voter turnout, I think, will determine a lot of this. So.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Number two, what you were talking about, the medical loss ratios for dental insurance plans up there. Again, 1.3% of the vote, but wow.
Wow.
Yeah, resoundingly, 76%. That was another thing, reading about that was that the 85% that this question calls for the dental insurance carriers to actually pay out in benefits is they don't even know if they're close right now. So like to your point, there's not a lot of transparency there. It could be that close, but I think what this question really asks for is it's going to really put things into transparency.
Yeah, we might find out a little bit more about how they're covering, what they're covering. So the issue was really that people were concerned that the dental carriers were using a lot of that for their administrative costs.
Yeah.
So their marketing or maybe their salaries rather than paying people's premiums.
Right.
So that's an interesting one.
Yeah, sure is.
Here we have question 3.
Yeah, changes to alcohol retail licensing. So no, 54% to 46%. Interesting, this is another one of those questions where even though if this question was to pass, so the local licensing boards would still have a lot of control over whether or not an organization could have more than the 7 prescribed licenses. So maybe statewide that would be allowed, but then you still have to deal with the municipalities going forward. So that's another one of those interesting questions.
I learned a little bit about this.
Yeah.
I often walked into certain supermarkets and thought, how come they're selling liquor here, but their other store isn't? And it turns out that they're only allowed so many,
That's
and
right.
they move them around and decide where they're going to sell their wine and beer. And then the actual all alcohol licenses, that's a completely different thing. I think that this initiative is hoping to increase the amount of people who can get beer and wine selling and lower the amount who can do beer, wine, and all liquor, so all the vodka. Because of the package stores, right? The small package stores.
And I think the other thing that's important to know is that restaurants and bars are not affected by this whatsoever. So again, that's a whole different process. This really comes down to, although some of the opponents of this were small business owners, one-shop operators who felt as though they might be priced out of the market when people could have more than X amount of licenses. So I mean, there are strong arguments on both sides. It'll be interesting to see.
And
where
like
this
you
goes.
say, the towns are still controlling.
That's right.
The liquor licenses. So it's a very mixed bag. Even in the answer with people voting yes and no, it seems like it's a really complicated, difficult question to get your mind around. And polls say that it's question 3. If any of them fail, it's going to be question 3.
Yeah, and again, some of the feedback that we have gotten in talking to people about this is that people felt as though it was very confusing, and it was a very confusing question, and they really couldn't get their head around it.
I thought so, but I'm easily confused.
As am I, so are the two of us. So. All right, now question 4, remove proof of citizenship or immigration status for driver's license applications.
Ah, okay.
So, here we go. So I guess the question for that is that there would, the proponents were saying there are still other hurdles that people would have to go through to get their licenses. for the immigration for people who are not legal residents.
Correct. Yeah.
And then, of course, the opponents strongly felt as though that you really needed to be a legal resident here to have the privilege of driving. So,
Yeah.
again, very mixed on this. It's pretty close. I think it's so early, that one still could go. I think that one is really probably the most contested out of all.
It's certainly the hottest,
yeah,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I do. I think I heard more people on both sides talking about that than even question one, which I thought question one would be the big storm, but
Right.
Very
A
interesting.
lot of passion about that.
Lot of
It's
passion.
interesting, all of these petitions, these initiatives or ballots, they sort of, in a way, talk about what the citizens are worried about. So, one, the millionaire tax, sort of income inequity,
Yep.
right? And the fact that their schools or their roads aren't being financed properly, and where are we going to find the funding? Two, the dental, the economy, I'm paying too much in health care. Three, the liquor licenses, again, sort of business, small business versus big business inequity. And this fourth one is immigration. So they're national issues, just in a small, they're even global issues, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this one in particular, I think, again, people have very strong opinions one way or another. Some of the talking to both sides, proponents saying, well, people are going to be driving anyway, so why not get them legal status, make them buy car insurance to get their license, et cetera, and then at least these people are going to be insured. Other people, opponents saying, well, they can flee and go wherever they want if they cause an accident, and again, that's all feeling whether or not there's there's bona fide truth to that or not. I don't know. I think the system is in place. So I'm just very curious to see how this one turns out.
Well, it has an interesting history because it was brought by the legislature to Charlie Baker, and he vetoed it. And the legislature overrode his veto. And so it's actually the law now, but it hasn't taken place yet, right? So this is a way for them to bring it back up and ask the voters, really, do you really want people who are undocumented residents to move to go to the DMV and get a driver's license?
Right.
And proponents say yes, because we want them to take a road test and we want them to be insured. Right. And there's also a workforce issue where a lot of these people need to drive to get to their jobs, and we need workforce, so that's something there. And they wanted to be very clear that people would not get a real ID from this. It would be impossible, and they would also not be automatically registered to vote. So, but then for the other side, there's the issue of fairness. These people haven't waited in line like other people who have immigrated with documentation. So it's an interesting and global question.
Challenging, right? How do you find a happy medium all the way around? But you're right. It is, and people I think are very passionate. Of all the four questions, this one seems to me to be the most even more than one. And I thought one would be the one because it was money, but. Yeah, very interesting. So, well, we'll see how those questions progress as we start getting more feedback and more results as our percentages start going up.
I'm still checking for you here.
Yeah, you're going to go to
I have
Politico. Yeah, so let's see what else.
I think we have some slides.
Yeah. All right. So, again, back to the governor's race.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where we're at with that. I think they're working on a graphic for us so we can take a look. And there we go. So
2% in.
Yep. So here we go. So
2.1%.
Yep. And 52%.
Now, early vote is usually considered to be the Democratic. I don't know if that's still true, but it was for the presidential election. They said that the Democrats voted early.
That's right.
So I'm wondering if we're looking at Democrats voting here more. But this is 2% of the vote.
Yeah.
That slide went up kind of fast.
That slide went up fast.
Let's see if I can find it again up here.
They can give it back to us.
They might give it back to us.
That's right.
If we've been really good.
Yeah. Here's our Attorney General's race going back. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrea Joy Campbell.
Andrea Joy Campbell, 66% of the vote.
Yeah,
and James McMahon III. Now, we know James McMahon III here in Falmouth because he was Sue Moran's opponent back in 2020. Right. So he's a Republican now going up against her. I don't believe he got Charlie Baker's endorsement. I'm not sure.
I don't believe he did. I thought for statewide office, the only person that got Charlie Baker's endorsement was Anthony Amore.
Anthony Amore.
I believe that was the only. I could be wrong, but that was my understanding.
Yeah.
And so, interesting, that race, I think, not going to anybody's surprise. I think, early polling kind of showed that Andrea was going to be out ahead there, so.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what you were talking about, a lot of firsts here, but we'll see if there's going to be any upsets. It's still early in the night. Let's see what happens.
It is possible that we will have, at the end of the night, it's a possibility, don't know yet, with only 2% of the vote in, that we might have, beg your pardon, here's the Secretary of State coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill Galvin, commanding lead, 72% of the vote.
Right.
And
no surprise there either. He's been our Secretary of State for a long time now, and each time he runs, he wins handily, so I'm not surprised.
Rayla Campbell, a very combative and controversial person with 25% of the vote from the Republicans. Juan Sanchez, he was from the Green Rainbow. He's got 2% of the vote. Bill Galvin has been our Secretary of State for, do you want to know how many years?
Tell me, because I think it's before I was a Massachusetts resident.
Is that right?
I think so.
1994?
Yeah, way before my time. So yeah.
ER and Friends were just premiering. It was their first year.
Oh, this trivia. This is amazing. She's amazing.
You were wearing a mullet. I had a scrunchie.
I was wearing a mullet, yeah, right.
1994. So he's been hanging out there for a long time. And if we have a Democratic showing, the way the polls show, we are going to have 5 of the 6 highest top offices, all female, with the exception of Bill Galvin, who is just amazing and hanging in.
Yeah. Well, like you said, he's been doing it a long time, and I've been here long enough to see every time he runs, he wins very handily. So that's great. Wonderful. He's doing a good job.
A lot of people sometimes don't really understand what the Secretary of State does. So he obviously does the elections, for one thing, right? And a lot of data storage and collection,
Business licensing, corporations.
Business licensing, exactly,
so, So we actually work with the Secretary of State's office pretty closely at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I bet you
do. And I have to say, they make it pretty easy there at the Commonwealth.
They got it streamlined.
Yeah, they do. They've done a pretty great job, so, yeah.
That's what happens when you have somebody, we've got a treasurer.
All right. Deborah Goldberg, 79% of the votes so far at 2.11 being counted. So again, to your point, not really a surprise there.
Yeah, the Republicans didn't really put anybody up for treasurer. This is a Libertarian candidate, Christina Crawford. Not a bad showing for a Libertarian, actually.
Not at all. Not at all.
These are Falmouth numbers.
These are Falmouth numbers. Yeah, so things are starting to grow. I can't wait till we get up to that 80 or 90% of the votes.
So I'll see if I can...
you got anything else you could pop up for us?
I'm wondering if I can pop up the district attorney's race, but they might be able to do it in the... I have some Sue Moran numbers as well.
And here's auditor.
Here's the auditor. Okay, so
Diana DiZoglio, 45%.
And here we see the strength of the Charlie Baker endorsement for many, many people.
Yep.
A lot
Anthony
of moderates
Moore,
are keen to watch who he endorsed. 47%, that's probably our strongest so far from that area. And Diana DiZoglio has got a 45%. Anthony Amori is a security consultant for the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. He was also did security and helped them after 9/11 at Logan Airport.
I see.
And Diana DiZoglio, the campaign got a little ugly at the end. I don't know if you got anything on your end text-wise.
I did not.
Okay, so DiZoglio,
glad to hear. Don't like it when it's ugly.
Yeah, so DiZoglio had a little, she had a church that she was a member of when she was young, I think in Alabama, and it seemed like it was a homophobic church, so that got out. She said that was when she was young. She had nothing to do with it. She has since endorsed a few gay candidates. And then Anthony Amori got in a little trouble for a divorce that seems to have involved some restraining orders and back and forth about that. That issue's a little muddied. So that was not as great a race in tone at the end. So that is too bad, unfortunately.
It is too bad when it gets ugly, and going to run on the issues that pertain. And so you say Isabella Gardner Stewart Museum there. So
Yeah.
Hopefully he wasn't there when those paintings were taken.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
gonna
I
be
think they
there.
brought him
don't
on.
think so. After that.
They brought him on
make
after
sure.
that.
Yeah. All right, so WCVB, we just heard it right here. WCVB has called Maura Healey as the next governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that's the official call from WCVB.
And the time is 9:06 here for us. That's a pretty early call. And this is our first openly gay, first woman elected governor of
the Commonwealth. So congratulations to Maura Healey.
Her partner, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, the two basketball players have scored
That's
together.
great. Yeah, all right. See the Celtics elevated. They'll be motivated now, hopefully, this year. And that's great. So stay tuned as we get more results. And maybe CVB will be calling a couple of the other elections. Some of them are pretty far out. Same type of percentages as the governor and the new lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth.
And I did say that I had some Cape Cod Times numbers for Sue Moran and her. We haven't talked about Carrie McRae. And let me tell you how much it's almost 12% of the vote counted so far.
Yes.
So 12%, not bad. Sue Moran is in the lead, 58% of the vote,
58%.
and Carrie McRae is 41.9%. So
With 12% reporting.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about Congressman Keating's race? Do you have any information on that? Obviously, the congressional seats are a big topic midterm. Usually in the Commonwealth here, there's not really going to be too many surprises.
Well,
but,
here we only have 3%, excuse
reporting?
me for interrupting you, almost 4% reporting. Bill Keating has started to lead again. He has 56.5% of the vote, and Jesse Brown, 43.5%. Jesse Brown's a Republican. He is a member of the Governor's Council. He's been on the Governor's Council for a while. A lot of people aren't sure what that job actually entails, but they handle commutations. They give advice and consent to the governor. So commutations, they consider appointments, particularly judicial appointments, and tell the governor what they think. There's 8 of them. No, excuse me, 9, because they're for each. No, it might be 8. And ours here is Joseph Ferreira. He's running uncontested. And Joseph Ferreira, the districts are so big. Joseph Ferreira is actually from Swansea.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and he's been our governor counsel for a long time, running unopposed. So we haven't talked about the unopposed people.
No, there have been quite a few. Barnstable County Assembly delegate running unopposed, right? Daniel Gesson.
Falmouth boy.
Falmouth boy, that's right.
Falmouth High School.
Yeah. Regional School Committee. So 4 seats there, all running unopposed.
Yeah.
David Sampson, Thomas Caravo, Michael Dagan, and Dominic Camerano Jr.
Well done.
So four.
And Dylan Fernandez.
As well, that's right.
Is
Dylan
1/3 of Falmouth and Dukes County and Nantucket County, and he had to deal with a big issue, national issue this year when immigrants were landed onto Martha's Vineyard.
That's right.
And he had to do a quick shuffle on that. He's running unopposed. Dylan Fernandez has been in for quite a while, and he's never faced an opponent. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting. We've worked very closely with Dylan as well as with David and Sue, through the Chamber of Commerce. And, the nice thing about being local is they're all very engaged. And you're right, Dylan stepped right up to the plate when needed. And this is the first time for me through the redistricting, very interesting. Dylan was always my state representative in Precinct 5.
Oh.
And this is the first time we didn't vote. It didn't vote because he wasn't. So for me, it was a choice between David and Kathy. So that's the first time. So a little redistricting. Be very interesting to see if that has any effect, on the election going forward.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
a good point. Sue Moran's district got a little bigger because of that. I think she got Plimpton and Mashpee, which she did not have before. So that was with the census, which was
Right. So I mean, those little differences sometimes can result in quite a few votes and percentage points. So, all right. So we jump into county
here's
commissioner.
a race we haven't talked about.
Yeah, that's right. So, Ronald Bergstrom, 55%, and Ronald Beatty Jr., 45%. It doesn't say on there what percentage
Yeah, I don't know
is
if they
reporting,
can
but
tell us in the control room what percentage it is, but the two Rons are really sort of, that's
Ron and Ron.
closer than,
I predict Ron's going to win this race. How do you like that?
You're a
But,
gambler.
yes, absolutely. So this one's looking pretty close, and we'll see. Again, the percentage of, even though we don't have the exact number up there, still a long way to go of
and you probably cannot get
7.39% we just heard, so
Excellent.
just under 8%. So
control
there's a
room's
long
in
way to go
charge.
with the race that close. So
You cannot get two people in those two Rons with a different campaign style,
That's right.
personality style.
Yes.
One man is Ron Bergstrom, who has been in before, is asking to be returned. Is very issue-oriented, talked in the debates about how he didn't want to make it personal. Ron Beatty, on the other hand, proudly combative and hot passionate.
Yes.
So it's interesting that they're so close. You know, that's an interesting one. The county that's 15 different towns that they are in charge of.
That's right.
County commissioner, you must deal with that with the chamber.
we certainly do.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly do. So yeah, that's a very important group working on regional issues, obviously. So you want somebody who's going to be able to get the perspective of all 15 towns. You know, Falmouth's very different than Brewster. It's very different than Provincetown. It's very different than Sandwich, et cetera. So somebody that has, I think, that idea, the big picture. So interesting. But, you know, back to your point, which I think, you know, some people like a combative candidate because they themselves feel as though that they want somebody who's going to lead in that direction. Other people don't. So again, you know, it's a reflection of, I think, of what people see and what they want to see in their leader. Again, these issues, when you're a county commissioner, you're dealing more with a regional issues and regional topics. So, you know, a lot of times I think people will say, well, what person's going to be better to my town or my area?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get that situation in there well. But again, with only just under 8% of the districts,
my
precincts reporting
goodness.
back, we don't know. So,
Look at this.
yeah, so with 9% of the vote counted, Donna Buckley is ahead 51% to Timothy Whalen, 49% for the sheriff's race. And that, again, that's here in Falmouth.
Yeah, here in
Yeah,
Falmouth.
Here in Falmouth,
she
so of
is
course,
ahead.
Donna,
Oh, I beg your pardon.
yeah,
That's
we
Cape
just heard
Cod
that's Cape
Times.
Cod Times. So that is 9% Cape Cod Times coming back. So that is a neck-and-neck race.
I think this is a reflection of how hard both of these candidates worked, really, really very hard, and
Right.
they're very popular. People really love them. This isn't a case of, well, you know, okay, you're my party. This is a real personal thing. People really resonated with Donna Buckley and Timothy Whalen. If
Yeah,
you
I think
ask
you're right.
them.
You're right.
Yeah.
They're both very personable. You know, I've spoken to both of them on countless occasions. They were out. I think to Donna's point, they ran a very civil campaign, did a lot of education, were very different, and I think did a good job explaining that. So it'll be very interesting to see what the voters decide. Because again, I don't think there was a lot of confusion as to what each one of these candidates sees as the role of the sheriff and what they will do if, in fact, they are elected to that job. So if some of the ballot questions were a little clearer, I think maybe it would have been okay. But yeah, so it'll be interesting. Still only 9%, long way to go, but neck and neck. So a couple of neck and neck races.
Okay, I think we have a little video to show here.
Great.
This is about the exit polls and how
Excellent.
we did
Wonderful.
here in Falmouth.
Which race is most influential or more important in your opinion?
I actually was voting on the district attorney race. Yeah, that was a big one for me. Higgins, I voted for Higgins. I don't mind saying it, but I think we have a lot of. I think there's lots of reasons here on the Cape to care about who the district attorney is.
Congressional. I mean, it's all I cared about. I don't know any of those other people, and I didn't put no votes down for most of them. I don't know somebody, I'm not going to vote for him.
So I think the governorship race currently is the most important to me. It's a big deal. I have 3 school-age children, and I think Jeff DeHeel backs kind of parents being more involved with the schools, transparency with schools, and things of that nature. And I think that's there's been a huge disconnect lately between schools and parents, and children and parents. So it's a little bit scary to see being a father of 3, you know. So I think that's the biggest thing for me currently. So.
Is there anything that was on the ballot today that you think will have a big impact on what might be on the ballot in 2024?
No, no. I you know, we live in a democratic state for the most part. So I kind of feel like there's not much going to change at all, unfortunately or fortunately. I don't know. I'm worried about people staying warm this winter, and you know, I don't know how we change any of that, but. I'm not sure we can do it on a local level. So we'll try. And either way, we got to vote.
You know, it's always interesting to hear what people have to say as they're coming out after they vote, and you really start, like what we've been talking about all night. You know, people vote for different reasons, they have different ideas. It's one of the beauties of this democratic society we live in, and to hear people really express themselves of what's important to them and why they voted the way they did. And you know, that one woman who said, you know, this is who I voted for, and I don't mind saying so. And you know, I think that's really wonderful that somebody can get up and speak that way and feel proud about their choice, whatever their choice is.
Yeah,
have a right to do that.
And they're such personal choices. I mean, they're kitchen table issues. They're how are you going to pay for your heat, and the COVID is a very good example. The mask issue, which Carrie McRae, who's Sue Moran's opponent, she had a lot to say about that. These are very tough issues for people, and they really feel them deeply.
Yes.
So that is interesting. Yeah, we didn't see any lines though.
No.
And when I drove around, I didn't see any lines.
Yeah, I know. It was when I got to my precinct, I voted early this morning, and it was more packed than it has been in the past. And I don't know if it's just because more people went in the morning or not, but I think it was steady. Again, some of the feedback we got was it was steady. And then, of course, Michael Palmer saying how it's 65% of the voter turnout, so that shows. You know, it'd be interesting. I don't know. Do more people vote in the morning or in the evening? You know, with Falmouth having such a large retired community, I'm sure voting is pretty steady all day long. But,
yeah, you're probably right. And we should say something about some of those poll workers and how amazing they are.
Yeah.
I once interviewed them, and they are just really, you would think, well, maybe they're just diehard. They believe in one party or the other. But sometimes some of them are just believers in America and democracy, and they just really want to be there and see their neighbors and say hi.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. And it's wonderful what Mike Palmer's doing and his team, and they work very hard. And just yesterday, they were given a commendation by the town of Barnstable, because Barnstable, I don't know if you heard that they had that election problem, and it was Mike Palmer and his team that helped them out so much and rushed to it, because he's sort of a vet of this, right? He knows what to do and how to do it. Got it streamlined.
Go-to kind of guy. So
so we're really lucky to have those kinds of.
So to that point, I'd like to give a big shout out to my colleague Susan Zavala and her team, who have been poll workers for I don't know how long, since before my time. And you're right, they're committed to the process, not to a specific party, and they're out there making sure that they make the process as easy and pleasurable for the voters as they can. So that's really wonderful. People work very, very hard on this day. And the Falmouth Police, who are there at all the polls as well, making sure that everything's done in an orderly manner. So, you know, hats off to the chief for taking care of that as well. So.
And for all the people who believe in their candidates and stand outside with signs and get the petitions going, and that's just a great day.
It is a pretty wonderful thing, you know. It's you know, at the end of the day, I hope everybody can just remember, regardless of how these races turn out tomorrow, we're all Americans, we're all Falmouth citizens. We're going to get up, continue to work together for the betterment of the entire community.
Yeah, and we actually can affect change. Our vote can affect change, even with the big issues. I mean, I know that somebody said maybe you can't affect too much change because...
Yeah, I disagree with that. On the local level, I think that was the comment, but I disagree.
Yeah.
I think at the local level, you can definitely affect change. I think we see it in town meeting all the time. All right, so we're going to go to Queen Bonda again, who has some unofficial results from Town Hall, so kind of what we've been waiting for.
Queen Carberry Bonda, what do you
Yeah.
have for us, and what's the vibe there now?
Here she
Hello,
is.
Queen.
Hi,
Can
Queen.
you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear. Tell us what's happening.
Okay, so we have just received, or I have just received from the town clerk here, the Falmouth unofficial election results.
Okay.
And as some of our viewers at home may know already, that for the governor, even here, that Maura Healey has a lead on that election. She has received a total of 10,841 votes. That is a little bit, I'd say, over 4,000 votes to her, a lead that she has to her opponent. For Attorney General, we have Andrea Kimball, who has received a total of 9,979 votes. For the Secretary of State, William Francis Garvin, who has received a total of 11,644 votes. We have for Treasurer, Deborah Goldberg, 11,709 votes. For Auditor, we have Diana Gizolio. I hope she forgives me. Yes, 8,912 votes. Representative in Congress, 9th District, we have Bill Keating, 11,180 votes. Councilor 1st District, we have Joseph Ferreira, 11,920 votes. Senator in General Court, Plymouth and Barnstable District, we have Susan Moran, 10,908 votes. Representative in General Court, 3rd Barnstable District, that goes to David Vieira, 6,386 votes. And actually, he was falling just a bit behind when I was reading to you those early voting election results. So, but according to this, he has won this election. For Representative in General Court, Barnstable, Duke, and Nantucket District, we have Dylan Fernandez, 4,406 votes. District Attorney, Cape and Islands District, we have Robert Galbois, 9,748 votes. For Sheriff in Barnstable County, we have Donald Buckley, 9,795 votes. County Commissioner, Barnstable County, we have Ronald Bergstrom, 10,488 votes. For Barnstable Assembly Delegate Falmouth, that goes to Danielle Geeson, 12,087 votes. For Regional School Committee Upper Cape Cod and Bourne, we have 11,000, that is David Sampson, 11,101 votes. Let's also see, okay, we have Regional School Committee Upper Cape Cod Falmouth. That went to, of course, uncontested, Thomas Corovo. My apologies, 11,433 votes. Okay, let me see. Okay, so we're going to questions here. And question one second. Sorry, I just had to step up to remember. Question one that had to do with taxes, raising taxes. That has won by a very small little margin. I think by maybe take about like 100 votes shy. But that has won by 84,469 votes. For question number two, that had to do with dental. That has won by a big margin, 11,789 votes. So that's a yes. question number 3, which had to do with expansion of alcohol license.
Something
And
Times,
that
state
has
racism.
that has received a no. That has lost by, and that has received a no vote. And for the last question, number 4, licenses for immigrants, that has received a tremendous yes approval from the town.
Thank you, Queen. Yeah, and we want to just remind voters, these are Falmouth numbers we're talking about. So these are Falmouth
Yes.
results only. These aren't statewide or countywide or whatever. So these are Falmouth-wide votes. And so that's great. That's wonderful. Are you going to be hanging around down there a little bit longer? Or is that pretty much?
I think that this is pretty much, let's just say that these are the Falmouth unofficial election results.
Wonderful.
So they may just be tweaking. Yes, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, can you just tell me the ballot questions again? It sounds like 1 and 2 are both, the yes vote won on those 2, is that right?
Okay, 1 and 2. So ballot question number 1, which had to do with taxes, that has received, that has won.
Yes, so, and 2 was also, the yes vote won on that as well?
2 had to do with dental, and that is, yes, a yes vote.
And then if you could just tell me the 3 and 4 again?
3, question number 3 had to do with alcohol. That is a no in Falmouth.
Okay.
Yes, alcohol expansion, but not by much
Right.
at all. Those who voted yes was like 7,711, and those who voted no, 8,728. So not by much.
Yeah.
Close
That
race.
was almost neck to neck. And question number 4, which had to do with licenses for immigrants, and that has received a yes, also by a very small margin, about like 74 votes.
Wow, 74 votes in Falmouth. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So really, it's only question 2 that has really garnered the most favorable votes. It's very interesting, neck and neck. So again, those are statewide questions. So it'll be interesting to see. We see how Falmouth has voted, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it seems like question 2, there was no, no pun intended, there was no question about it. The yes was by 11,789, while no was 4,882.
Queen, we thank you. You
Yeah.
did a fabulous job out there.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, and same to you guys.
Put your feet up.
Wonderful. So I think we're going to go to the Cape Cod Times ballot questions. So we're going to take a look at not just Falmouth, we're going to look at the ballot question results coming up. So this is Cape Cod Times saying, question 1, again, look how close that is. 51 to 49% with 4.66% of the votes counted. So a long way to go there.
Long way to
Could go
go.
either way, so you can't, nowhere near calling that. So
Yeah.
very interesting to see how that goes. Yeah, again, a lot of passion on both sides. Yeah, question 2.
Medical loss ratios for dental insurance.
So that's following the Falmouth lead. You know,
Yes.
so again, right in line with what Queen talked about as far as Falmouth goes. Here we go with the Cape Cod Times showing that. And question
And the
3.
alcohol, the alcoholic licenses is losing at this point, but again, 5% of the vote counted. That is a mixed bag, just like we spoke about,
And look
right?
at this, 50-50.
My goodness.
Yeah, and again, we still have 94% of the vote to go.
I
estimated
have a
vote to count,
feeling
but
that we're
that's-
going to be waiting all night for that answer.
So you know what the question that I find always fascinating with some of these is, regionally, do people vote very differently? Are the city folk voting different than the people out in the country? How things affect them, and how different communities see these issues. So
I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, so
Although
it's
even in families, there's different
Oh yeah,
votes.
no question,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But like the driving issue, how for the immigrants, how much does that really affect, say, communities in the middle of the western part of the state? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm assuming that in more of the populated,
more congested
urban and
traffic.
suburban areas, that's going to have more of an issue. So, and again, even as far as the other ones, depending on where you live. So, again, this is back to Cape Cod Times, the governor, lieutenant governor. Again, it's just the call has already been made by WCVB.
Yeah.
Congratulations to our new governor, Governor Maura Healey.
Yeah, Jeff Deal's run for a few races now. We'll see what happens to him, what he decides to do, if he'll run in a different race or... Yeah, and again, he did not have Charlie Baker's endorsement. That might not have helped, that he didn't have that.
Yeah, and again, what we talked about earlier, the interesting thing was Charlie Baker was very supportive of Maura Healey, and vice versa. You know, she, as running as a Democrat, didn't come out and start throwing him and under the bus and trashing him. Was actually very, they worked very well together and really commending him on the job. And I think their governing style is going to be very similar. Of course, they worked very closely together for the last 8 years anyway. So I'm sure they had a camaraderie and a professional relationship. So it'll be very interesting.
She's also broken the Attorney General curse, which is that Attorney Generals run for governor and never make it. So she did it.
There we go. Wow.
Congratulations.
A lot of firsts for Maura Healey tonight.
Yeah,
Good for her. Yeah, wonderful.
That's a trifecta, right?
There you go. It's a trifecta.
That's
wonderful.
my sports analogy for today, and that's the only one you're going to hear.
All right. Yeah. So as we continue, the polling continue to take
I could
place
really
after.
use a magic wall instead of this. I'm just saying.
Sorry to say we weren't able to get Senator Moran on. We couldn't make that Zoom work. I'm sorry to say. I would have liked to have chatted with her and see how she felt that she's off and running.
And I would have liked to. I would like to have asked Susan Moran what she thought of where she'd want to put the money for question 1, because question 1 does look like it passed, at least it passed in Falmouth, and it would be interesting to see if she wants to put it on the Cape Cod bridges. It's for education, it's for child care is her big issue, and I really wanted to ask Susan Moran. Now we've got a woman Senate President, a woman in charge of the Ways and Means chair position. I think we have a woman majority leader. Now we may have 5 women in the biggest races in the land. Can she get child care, really push it right over instead of being a woman's issue, you know, a family issue that really, as you would know as Chamber of Commerce, that affects families' pocketbooks. Child care is a massive charge on people's economic lives, right?
Yeah, I think that really plays in, you're right, to the point that family issue, not just a woman's issue. You know, today it takes 2 parents, it takes 2 incomes really to make it happen. So it's not just about women, it's about the whole family. And again, with the complications we have here on the Cape, the biggest issue, of course, being affordable housing, which takes up so much if you're fortunate enough to be able to either rent or own here.
Yes.
You know, so much of your income is going. How much is left over for childcare? How does that, you know, enable a working couple to get out there and make it happen? So complicated times, things have changed. I think the role the role of childcare and it's just a necessity today. And again, how do you address that? What's fair?
Yeah. So Sue Moran, 12% of the vote counted here. This is Cape Cod Times. We have her at 58% of the vote. Carrie McRae has got 41% of the vote. So we'll see what happens there. That's going to be, they might have a long time. 12%,
you said it's 12%?
Correct.
Yeah, so we still have a ways to go there.
Yeah.
Still have a ways to go. But things usually trend in that direction. You know, I think in these more localized races, it's really the statewide ones that are very interesting, again, regionally, but it'll be interesting to see when we start getting up to that 50%, that's usually starts.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know if we'll still be here. I don't think we'll be here.
Open up the spigot. Well, it's 9:33, so the polls have been closed for now for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I can just give you Donna Buckley's numbers from the Cape Cod Times, which is 51%. She's leading.
She's still holding that lead, okay.
Timothy Whalen, and he's got 48%. This is a tight race, and it's 9% of the vote ends there, if that's the Cape Cod Times coming in with that. You know, we haven't talked about the district attorney race, I realize. So that's Robert Galibois, or Galibois. Galibois.
Yes.
French. My French is not as good as yours. And he's the Democratic. There is no challenger because Michael O'Keefe has left, right? There's 2 candidates going neck and neck. That's Robert Galibois and Dan Higgins, right? Dan Higgins wants to be district attorney. He's the Republican. He has been at the Barnstable Superior Court as a DA now for, as an ADA for the entire time. Robert Gallibois has both the defense and the prosecutorial experience. That will be interesting to see. I wonder if I can get up those, or the people in the control room can tell us how we're doing in that particular race. I don't know if Cape Cod Times has that in yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot from that race so far this evening.
Yeah.
Certainly both, but that race, I think, was very heavily publicized, and you're right.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking about that race.
Bill Keating has, well, one of the reasons is because we've only ever had 2 district attorneys. We've had Rollins, and then we had Michael O'Keefe, so, and they've both been Republicans. Should Gallibois win, it'd be the first Democrat we've had in, I think, 37 years.
It's been that long.
Long time,
wow.
yeah. So, Bill Keating, interesting, there's only 7% vote counted so far at 9:30. 57% of the vote, he's leading.
Okay, he's got that lead.
Jesse Brown, 42% of the vote. So, yeah, got the Bill Keating's been around for a while now, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting too on the national level when you're talking about these highly contested or races, congressional races that could go either way. There wasn't really a lot of expectation that Congressman Keating would, lose his seat.
Right.
So, I'd be very surprised to see him lose that seat at the end of this, even though we only have a small percent
That's
reporting.
not a nail biter. I think it's.
I don't think it's going to be a nail
say.
biter. It certainly didn't grab any national attention. That people are closely watching this congressional district. So
far, our sheriff's race is a nail biter.
it's a nail biter. It certainly is. Yeah, it is.
And maybe the.
How about going back? Do you have anything on the? I'm very curious to see the state representative race.
Well, I'm sorry to say the Cape Cod Times still does not have anything for Kathleen Alfano or David Vieira.
Yeah.
They have 0% reporting.
That was.
I have refreshed over and over again, but there's nothing there. Yeah. But let's see. We did Bill Keating, Donna Buckley.
Maybe it's just too many votes to count. That's good. If there's a lot of votes and keeping everybody busy out there.
Okay.
Well, I think we'll have to wait and see. They'll be reporting. People are counting the votes. So after we sign off, I think you can continue to get some news through the internet, or at least watch some of the national races going on, and some of the congressional races and all. I'm sure they'll be reporting late into the morning hours on national television.
I think the sheriff's race has a way to go.
Yeah, it has a way to go. We won't. I don't think that one's going to be called for a long. Yeah,
yeah.
It's going to be for. It's going to be called a little bit later. So we'll see how that one goes. It'll be very interesting. And yeah, so hope you enjoyed FCTV's coverage this evening. As always, I had a great time. It's always fun to be here. And
Michael, I appreciate you so much. That was fabulous.
And I do you, and I learned a lot. I always learn. It's wonderful to bring people in and talk to them and kind of understand where they're coming from. And again, I think for me, the thing that I take away from this whole thing was really, I think the majority of the contests were very civil. They were very fact-oriented. I think people behaved very well. And
I hope that was true around the country.
Yeah, that we can only have fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers
wonderful.
crossed.
So.
Good luck to all the candidates. Thank you to all the poll workers, town clerk, and everybody out there who went and voted. And thanks for watching tonight here on FCTV, your midterm election coverage.